Welcome back to our topic lesson year 2. I hope you're all very well. We're going to look at Roald Dahl. This will be our last lesson. We're going to look at 2 of his stories, Matilda and the Magic Finger. So let's start with the Magic Finger. I'm going to read the very beginning of the story to you. The farm next to ours is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Gregg. The Greggs have 2 children. Both of them are boys. Their names are Phil and William. Sometimes I go over to their farm to play with them. I'm a girl and I'm 8 years old. Philip is also 8 years old. William is 3 years older. He is 10. What? Oh, all right then. He is 11. Last week, something very funny happened to the Greggs family. I'm going to tell you about it as best as I can. Now, the one thing that Mr. Gregg and his 2 boys loved to do more than anything else was to go hunting. Every Saturday morning, they would take their guns and go off into the woods to look for animals and birds to shoot. Even Philip, who was only 8 years old, had a gun of his own. I can't stand hunting. I just can't stand it. It doesn't seem right to me that men and boys should kill animals just for the fun they get out of it. So, I used to try to stop Philip and William from doing it. Every time I went over to their farm, I would do my best to talk them out of it, but they only laughed at me. I even said something about it once to Mr. Gregg, but he just walked on past me as if I wasn't there. Then, one Saturday morning, I saw Philip and William coming out of the woods with their father, and they were carrying a lovely young deer. This made me so cross that I started shouting at them. The boys laughed and made faces at me, and Mr. Gregg told me to go home and mind my own P's and Q's. Well, that I did. I saw red, and before I was able to stop myself, I did something I never meant to do. I put the magic finger on them all. Oh dear, oh dear. I even put it on Mrs. Gregg, who wasn't there. I put it on the whole Gregg family. For months I had been telling myself that I would never put the magic finger upon anybody else again. Not after what happened to my teacher, old Mrs. Winter. Poor old Mrs. Winter. One day we were in class and she was teaching us spelling. "Stand up," she said to me, "and spell cat." "That's an easy one," I said. "K-a-t." "You are a stupid little girl," Mrs. Winter said. "I'm not a stupid little girl," I cried. "I'm a very nice little girl." "Go and stand in the corner," Mrs. Winter said. Then I got cross and I saw red and I put my magic finger on Mrs. Winter, good and strong, and almost at once, guess what? I hope you enjoyed the very opening of the story. Now, year 2, what I want you to do is to pause the video now and think, what could the little girl have turned her teacher into? Also, I'd like you to think about what she could have done to the Greggs family. So stop the video now, have a think, and when you're ready, let's see what actually happened. Great ideas, year 2, fantastic. Now let's take a look at what happened in the story. I'm going to read the summary and find the answers. The story talks about a little girl with a magic finger. One day, She sees her neighbours, the Gregg family, with lots of hunted ducks. So she gets cross, and when she gets cross, her finger casts a spell which can transform people into animals, like the day when she transformed her teacher into a cat. So the night after trying to hunt for ducks with no success, the Gregg family go to bed. The next day, when they wake up, they realize they have wings. So they go out to fly. But then 4 ducks with human arms take their house. The days pass and the Gregg family builds a nest and they eat some fruit from the gardens. But the day after, the 4 ducks try to hunt the Gregg's family. So Mr. Gregg says that it's never going to kill a bird anymore. The Gregg family is transformed into humans and they destroy all their guns, change their last name to Egg, and they never kill ducks anymore. So Year 2, what do you think of the story? I know it's very funny, very strange, but that is Roald Dahl. Have a look on YouTube and watch the rest of the story. Now let's take a look at another one of Roald Dahl's stories. Let's have a look at the main characters. We have Matilda, our main character, Michael, her brother, Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood, her parents, Miss Honey, her teacher, Bruce Bogtrotter, one of the little boys at school, Amanda Thrupp, another little girl at school, and the principal, Miss Trunchbull. Got some funny names there, right? So the story is about a little girl called Matilda. She loves to read and learn, and she really wishes she could go to school, but sadly, she lives with a horrible family. We have Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood, and they have a son called Michael. An awful family. They really don't care about Matilda. They think she's ridiculous for wanting to read and to learn. They just want to sit and watch the TV all day. Matilda's father sells cars for a living, but there's normally something wrong with the cars. He's not a very honest man at all. Matilda nags and nags her parents to send her to school. One day they give in, and they send her to school, thinking it's a waste of time. There she meets her teacher, Miss Honey, who's a lovely character and helps Matilda throughout the book. But Matilda finds she has special powers. Something called telekinesis, which means she can move things without touching them, just using her mind. Now at school we meet the dreadful Miss Trunchbull. She is the principal and she terrorizes the children. She forces them to eat huge chocolate cakes. She throws them by the pigtails. She does awful things to the children, to the point that if they tell their parents would never believe them. Matilda and Miss Honey become very close friends. And one day they find out that Mrs. Trunchbull, who is Miss Honey's auntie, actually killed Miss Honey's father and took his house and all his money. So they need to get everything back. What should Matilda do? She's going to use her special powers. So they break in to Miss Trunchbull's house, which used to be Miss Honey's father's house, and pretend to be the ghost, because Matilda can make things move and Miss Trunchbull thinks it's a ghost. She runs away and her reign of terror is over for the children. Matilda lives with Miss Honey and the school gets a new principal. I want you to think about both stories, Year 2, and what they have in common. We have a little girl who's magic. I like both of the stories and I wanted to put them together as I think they're very similar in many ways, but also very different. If you had a magic power, what would it be? Think about that, Year 2. Now, we come to the end of looking at Roald Dahl, sadly. Now, please take a look at his books. Go on YouTube, watch some of the videos where people are reading the stories. It's a fantastic world and the wonderful world of Roald Dahl, as they call it. I hope you enjoyed the lessons, Year 2, and found it as interesting as I do. Now, please take the time to pick up a book and read. I'm going to finish the lesson with a beautiful quote by Roald Dahl himself. Somewhere inside all of us is the power to change the world. Okay, take care, Year 2, and I'll see you soon.